So we got, any additions or corrections to the agenda? Doyle had an appointment he had to be at, so he won't be here. Could be here later, but probably not. The motion to approve the agenda,
So moved. Second.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, is there a second to approve the minutes?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Warrants. They're emailed out.
So Carl, maybe you know, this MCIT $10,000 deductible for claim, what did that do?
I can tell you because I researched it. Has to do with the email data request emails that got released that should not have.
Okay. There's a deductible in that process then.
Chad responded.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion to pay the bills.
Second,
Second.
there's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guess we can. We can, address the ordinance. We can do that 10 minutes early, can't we?
Nope,
No.
it's posted for 9:15, you can't start that before 9:15. That's a
right.
public meeting.
Oh, yeah,
I can make a motion to approve the resolution supporting the psychiatric residential treatment facility in Clay County. I'm assuming it's the exact same one we approved for Western Prairie.
so we're jumping down to that last item there.
That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Do we need to talk about it at all, or we've seen it because it's the same one?
That's the same one.
So you made that a motion?
Yep.
Do we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we do have a little time. Reed. Why don't you come forward?
Come on. You want all of our crap or just?
No, we gotta
No,
wait for the hearing.
No, we got, we're not,
We're killing time.
this is the impromptu part.
Okay.
You did that other duties as assigned, you didn't,
Oh,
they didn't tell you about that?
Morning. I'll come sit and be your time filler for a minute.
So part of that, you've seen us do this before, haven't you?
Yes, yep,
And so you somewhat come prepared,
I think so.
Someone,
Never
so,
know what you guys wanna know or wanna ask, so.
so if I asked you if there's an area that you'd consider challenge or I'll use the word challenge, that's in your position and kind of how's it going, where would be an area that the learning curve or
Yeah.
that whole deal, how is Reed doing?
It's actually going really well. We're kind of winding down our field season here with the temperature switching and weather coming, so that's been good, cause it's been kind of a flurry of hurry up and get stuff done, just like everybody in the field does too, but other than that, it's pretty good. Solid waste is its own kind of monster, so we're still kind of figuring out all the little nuances, cause sometimes you think A is the problem, but there's really so much other things in the background that you just didn't know, so.
Mhm.
Had a couple different meetings with Engelbretsons and a couple with some other folks who run other programs in Stevens County and a couple other counties.
So
So just
let
trying to
me-
figure out some things that we do and is that how they do it? Is that how we should do it? Kind of,
So you referenced the monster.
yeah.
Tell me how many tentacles this monster has for you.
As many as you guys got too. The county board is its own monster too. This is about the same. There's. Everything we do is related, so just, it all links together, whether or not it's directly or not, it's pretty well entitled to everything again.
there is directly and indirectly.
There you go. But it's a fun thing that it's all new, so it's a brand new, oh, this is something I haven't seen or done before. It's an adventure. Yeah, there's some frustrating, what the heck? But there's also some, well, that was easier than thought it was gonna be, and now we're kind of coming up on gonna be a year here shortly. So we kind of figured out some of the, broad things that a guy can figure out pretty quick. Now we're kind of the more detailed little tweaks here and there that a guy's figuring out.
So. I noticed in the bills that the organics bill is short of $2 short of $1,900. Have you done any analysis on how $1,900 relates to tonnage or to
Yeah,
communities?
A guy, we had a meeting last week with Engelbretsons and Stevens County about all their organics and how they do all that. Gotta be careful associating tonnage and hourly together, cause they don't mix. And it doesn't work. And if you try and figure out that way, a guy will never come ahead. And we gotta have another one of them solid waste committee deals, cause there's about 5 deals that we kinda, in the last week or two that have kind of propped up that need a chat.
So does Ingebrigtsens think with the mileage, drive time, hours, does it making sense to them?
If we got some more tonnage, it'd be better. A lot of times they're coming this way anyways for whatever reason, so it's not a big deal, but some more tonnage would definitely make it, equal out better. Unless you get a pretty decent amount, they're probably never gonna you're not making money, obviously, that's not the goal, but you're not probably breaking that even either, so.
Yeah.
You gotta get some more people involved, which takes more time on my end, or takes more time with Greg or Ruben, or having somebody kind of walk through, here's what we need to target these businesses who are some pretty, they have a lot of weight. That's why Troy, I said, here's your top 5 that I would go after if you're gonna do this, because they produce a lot of weight, and a lot of that could be diverted to organics or could be diverted to somewhere else. And then that would save them money by not having to have their dumpster twice a week, and now it's once a week because the other half went somewhere else. So there's a pretty big education piece that's gonna be coming. That's was the majority of what Troy and Stevens kind of said. That first half or year or two is just getting people to know what it is, where it goes, how it works. So it's
How
fun.
about these rural dumpsters? You got any complaints on some of that?
Not lately. it seems like they're just like everything else, they're kind of quiet for a while, then all of a sudden a couple of them flare up. But we haven't heard anybody dumping anything, or Troy hasn't said, hey, I found all this extra stuff that's not supposed to be in them. There's some stuff with like the drop sites, you know, and the intersections that's a little funky with animals. It's
Okay.
usually kind of an issue, so
Okay.
we wanna talk those through and their use is kind of sporadic. It's not like somebody uses it every single week all the time and it's constant. It's, this guy used it once in 3 months and somebody else used the other one once in 2 months, so it's kind of sporadic. Something to talk about.
4 minutes of wisdom from Reed Peterson.
I 4 minutes from you. But
You got
Yeah.
4 minutes of wisdom? I know you do.
Now's when you crack a joke.
yeah, no, I got
That was when I get some coffee.
Greg's wisdom is life's a roller coaster. You just try and stay level and it works out a lot better that way. Don't get fired up, don't get sad or pissed. You just,
So you're
Try and
good at
stay-
riding a surfboard then, so.
I'm trying. You know. Work and life.
Ride the wave on her?
Ride the wave, 2 different waves, one's the work wave, one's the life wave.
You know, the way I see it is commissioner proving grounds.
It's not so bad.
Yeah.
Life isn't bad, but
Yeah.
No, that's the best way, Reed, go with, just
Yeah,
don't let them get to you.
and just try and stay in your swim lane the best you can, kind of flirt with the edges some, but.
Yeah.
Just stay in my,
Be good at listening a little bit, right? And then explain yourself.
my wife,
Be honest.
that's what I've said, you gotta listen, otherwise you do
Yeah,
too
you
much of the
gotta-
talking and not enough of the listening.
Let them tell you what they wanna
Anybody.
tell you and then
Let them have their say. A lot of anxiety out here these days. And people, that's how they get rid of it. They feel so much better after they're done chewing on you.
Yep.
I can tell.
And if you can handle a little bit of chewing, it's okay.
It's a PhD in BS, you know what I mean? So I got a couple of them.
Do you think you could teach Bill how to eat warm crow?
No.
No,
I-
not possible.
No, you can teach old dogs new tricks, but I'm not volunteering for that
You
job, I'll be
couldn't,
honest
you
with you.
couldn't teach Bill to eat warm crow.
I don't think I can teach anybody to eat warm crow.
Oh, chicken yukasake.
Just put it in the crock pot long enough, it'll be fine.
So let's go back to the whole PhD and BS thing.
Sure.
Don't follow that at all. Just tell the truth and your life is gonna be way simpler.
I think you're right.
Don't,
I think that's common.
it may be a little uncomfortable today,
Yeah.
but tomorrow's so much better.
Yeah,
I don't know the truth.
Yeah, I always found if you can't do something, you tell them I can't do it anymore.
Right.
that's,
But I'll try to help you out any way I can.
that's my motto. I tell you, I don't know that answer. I don't know how to do that, but I can sure try and figure out who does know how or does do that, and we can figure this out.
Yeah.
So, which is the whole solid waste monster. No idea how to do it when we started, but now,
You got Carl and speed dial.
yeah, Carl helps.
Curbside recycling going well.
Yeah,
Everybody seems to be.
it seems like people have figured it out, utilize it, and some of the towns, their tonnages are slowly creeping up, but.
Yeah,
I sure like it.
what it does is take the pressure off of these trailer sites.
Yeah.
So there's always room.
Yeah,
When
instead of
somebody
being
drives up, though.
stacked and packed, there's a little more space
Correct.
there. So,
Okay, it is now 9:15. You've done well.
I'm gonna get out of your way.
I'm making any public comments.
Greg, are you next?
Well, you gotta do your ordinance at 9:15 and then we're up.
Oh, excuse me, I was jumping down to Vermos. My bad. Okay, Carl, what do you need to add anything or?
So this is the Grant County ordinance, number, 2024-1119-1. It's an ordinance prohibiting cannabis use in public places. This is the time for public input if there is any. So this has been published in my office. If anybody has wanted a copy, they can get a copy from myself now. This is something that was brought to me from public health. This would mirror, basically what statute states in prohibiting cannabis use in public places. This helps allow, the the sheriff's office, because there's some points in there for them to have some teeth in this. And this is the recommendation of public health. I have not had any comments or requests to view the ordinance. It has been posted in the newspaper for longer than 10 days. After reading the ordinance requirements, I believe we have met all the requirements of the ordinance.
Is there a motion to,
Yes, Mr. Chair, I got a question here. So then if the cities set their own, then they have latitude to do that, correct? Is that what I'm reading here? Authorizes local units of government to adopt,
It can supersede it.
right?
Correct.
so you're saying the city could adopt where they had let it
Each township too.
in,
Yeah.
in public places?
He's correct. Any political subdivision,
But if they don't adopt anything, then this would
they
be,
have to stick to this.
Yes.
So the fine portion of this is a petty misdemeanor, up to $300, which means it's really not a crime. But that's what petty misdemeanors are. So,
And again, this would follow what the state statute says of the
Yep.
recommendation of public health.
have you heard from many of the cities or have we?
All of the cities for the regular cannabis ordinance, most of them would like to see what the county rates to determine whether they'll create their own or not.
We're taking the lead then.
It sounds like we'll be taking the lead. The only cities that I have not gotten a hold of yet are Wendell and Norcross. So those are the only two that I haven't been able to connect with. But all the other cities have been. I've talked and they're all in agreement that if the county has something, they would, if it's something that they could jump, agree with, they would jump on board. Some of the jurisdictions are on the let the free market ride, and others would like to see a little bit more teeth into it. But they never stated what that teeth would look like.
Like, as a former sheriff, what do you think about the enforcement side of the public thing?
Well, I guess, if I was a sheriff, I got a complaint on it, I'd go and handle that. There's probably gonna be, like, if you have an outdoor deal going on, there's probably gonna be a lot of people doing that. It'd probably be a little hard to pinpoint it once they throw it down, but I guess, it's an ordinance and, we kind of got the contracts with the cities and, you're supposed to enforce their ordinances, so.
Yeah, the reason I was asking too is in a conversation Carl and I and Reed had, some of our bigger metro counties or large, with 50-60,000 people, I think law enforcement was a little apprehensive about how they were gonna enforce that, but I think out here rurally, I think it's more manageable, and if public health is very interested in, that concept, I think it's a good idea, but
Yeah, and the bottom line is, that unless the deputy sees it, it's pretty hard to,
yeah, right, that's,
because they're gonna throw it down and then you got 10 people saying he didn't do that or.
yeah,
Yeah. So it would be you get a complaint, you'd walk into the area and maybe they clean it up a little bit.
yeah.
It's just how it is, so. And it's no mistaking marijuana smoke. I've been around it for 55 years.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I've been smoking it for 55 years. Oh, no.
I've never used it, but I've smelled it many times, right, Ken?
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
How did you do that? Throw a bale in the campfire then or?
I've done that too.
Okay.
The destruction orders, we burnt a lot of marijuana. But,
Lightning Light comes to mind.
what's that?
Lightning Light comes to mind.
Yeah.
So, we could entertain a motion for the said ordinance number as listed here, and then get a second, we can have additional discussion.
And this ordinance sunsets December 31st, 25.
For the use in Canada. So this is just the public use, so I don't,
I thought we had one that.
that would have been the prohibiting any new uses. So since we're so close to the January 2nd date, this is a separate ordinance. I did not bring that other ordinance forward as I didn't feel like having the costs associated that anybody's gonna start a business in the next month. So I didn't.
More to come.
The next ordinance that'll be brought forward will be the cannabis ordinance.
So there is no sunset on this one.
There is no sunset on this one. The only thing that would sunset this was if it was to be rescinded or if a different ordinance were to replace this one.
Something supersede.
Something supersedes this.
Mr. Chair, do you think we should write out the timeframe? Before we-
Right,
before we
yeah,
pass.
with your terminology, write out the time frame. mean.
Well, this is a hearing, right? Nobody is here, but there could be somebody walk in, right? So before we pass it, we should actually give the, to Troy's statement, this is.
So
stuff-
to
this is more
9:35?
hearing.
It's,
No, you just can't start it till
You just
9:15.
can't start it till 9:15. It can be if there is no public and there is no input, there is no set amount of time in statute that says this has to be open. As long as you hear public comment. But if you wanted to change the verbiage of the ordinance, we would need to repost it and do our 10-day notice. If you wanted to put a sunset of 5 years or 2 years or.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the sunset. What are we talking about here? Is there a sunset for the new ordinance that's coming in?
We're just talking about the ordinance prohibiting cannabis use in public places.
Right.
If, say the board chose to say the sunsetted, December 31st, 2030. That would be something that we would have to add to the ordinance.
No.
And then it'd have to be,
and we just gotta remember, I don't know that, cause we don't. If someone doesn't like it, a future
Right.
board, then they can change it.
Change it.
I don't think we should sunset it.
But when Troy mentioned the sunset, was that on something else?
That was on a different ordinance that didn't come forward because there's only like a month left that it would have been.
There will, I don't know if it will be on
Okay, I
that or
got you.
not, I'm not sure.
My question on this becomes, and I look at the exemptions from public places is. You have a campground that's technically private property. Is it illegal? But it's accessible to the public. Is it illegal for an individual to sit around a campfire at the campsite they're paying rent on? And smoke marijuana?
Well, I read that, Troy, but it looked like the owner of that campsite could prohibit it. Isn't that what it says in there? If he says, cause campsites, even though it's private, they can prohibit things.
Right, sure, a private campground can say, hey, you can't have alcohol here.
Right, right.
But let's say the owner hasn't said that, but the camper next to him complains. Does this make it illegal for that individual to sit somewhere he's paying rent, or they're paying rent by a campfire, but the neighbor doesn't like it? I mean, is that?
Like Elk Lake Campground. owned by
Well,
the
Elk
city.
Lake, Barrett's got one, Tips, I mean, there's campgrounds all over.
That are public.
That's
It's a
owned by the
public
city.
clinic.
That would, so that, in that case, probably they couldn't. I don't know, so we're getting into a definition of public places then.
Well, so it's a public campground, open to the public, but I'm paying rent on this lot. That, for me, before we move forward, that's something I need. And I thought I brought that up before, but apparently not.
Is there a definition of public space in that ordinance?
not in this
Not in that
ordinance.
one.
Cause it says, a private residence, including a person's curtilage or yard, private property not generally accessible to the public. I just don't wanna have 30 problems on campgrounds, cause one individual thinks it's fine and the person next to him says no, when they repeatedly are calling saying they're in violation of this ordinance.
Well, the number two though, it says, you know, private property, whoop, I hit something there.
Not generally accessible by the public unless a person is explicitly prohibited from consuming cannabis flower products. Local to see him.
But it's not, but in this example, it's not necessarily private property.
If it's leased, that throws it into a different arena.
So if you take Ken's example of Elk Lake, it's owned by the city of Hoffman. But I'm paying rent, so is that my private property now or not?
I would say it's still the city of the property.
I think it is too.
So then it would be illegal.
So that would be illegal.
Okay, now Barrett Lake Resort, that's private property.
It would be their own
It would
specific.
be illegal.
But if they said.
If they said, we're not gonna touch this, we don't care,
Then that's private property. That would be,
But if they said, Barrett said no smoking marijuana or no marijuana use here, then it's unlawful.
right.
No.
well, no, it would have to be the owner. That's privately owned.
Correct, the owner would have, if. But that would be private property, so then that would be that. But I believe like if there was an event going on that was centered around marijuana. Public use would be allowed, because in that event.
It's permitted.
space, yes,
So who's issuing said permits?
that would be the public health, and that would be the ordinance that we need to, the next ordinance that we need to pass. And that's something that I'm gonna have conversation with Amy, with Greg, with the sheriff's office, with Stacy. Those are the different individuals, but whoever would be tasked on the county board, so that we can all kind of come together and look at and see how we want those ordinances written up. Or if you want to pass an ordinance.
So,
Well, if we're saying it has to be permitted, we have to be able to have a permit.
In the permitting process. And the allowabilities of that permit.
so section 1B, where it says public place, I mean, it pretty much says it all, other than it doesn't specifically say campground. It references beach, pier, sidewalk, park. But I think you can almost assume within that description that
Park is park. It's vague, but it still covers the.
I would think it, I don't know that it warrants that we need to specifically list campground. I think there's enough.
Well, I use campground as an example because Pine Ridge Park, it doesn't apply because you're not paying rent. Once you start paying rent for a lot, does that insinuate then that it's your home? That you have rights there that.
The lease gives you the right to occupy that space for a set amount of time,
Same as an apartment.
same as an apartment. But the apartment owner could prohibit cannabis use in their apartment.
Well, let's say they don't. Where we run into trouble is if they don't specifically prohibit it. I just don't want law enforcement responding to calls every day because my neighbor Joe is sitting by his campfire again smoking a joint. Dwight knows what I'm talking about. That phone call, if this isn't clear, that phone call will happen repeatedly.
That's the conversation I was trying to have with Brenda, is that's what we're hearing. Is law enforcement's kind of going, oh,
Well, right, because I mean, there's individuals that it doesn't matter what you tell them every day. You tell them today and tomorrow they're gonna call again.
Don't you think that would fall under, and let's use Hoffman, for instance, the city? They could apply an ordinance that would permit it.
Right.
And that would override us anyway.
Right.
But I hear you. But I think if somebody wants to permit it in the campground, and let them.
That would also be the requirement of the one on Pound to Tear.
Well,
Yeah, so there'd be
public
same things.
settings.
Anything that's. It would be the city's determination of whether they wanna continue to follow the ordinance or whether they choose to create their own ordinance.
So Maya, there's a guy with some experience.
Well, this is what I was listening to, because I was curious in what would happen and if the city, you know, if the city chose to make a difference. Would they supersede it? Is that how that is saying that would work? So you could say no public, but the city could say you can do it on the campground
Yes,
if they chose,
In your site only.
right? And does it mean in your eyes?
not in
does it
your
make a
site,
difference
the campground, your site, the whole
If I'm a
campground.
seasonal leaser versus a weekender?
Well, this is just it. There's different variations
Right,
there.
you know, how does that all play into it? You know, is that all gonna be on the city to decide those pieces for how they operate that particular campground?
I think so.
That's interesting. So,
So weigh in a little farther. Well, I like your comment, but you got more in there that you haven't told me.
what's that?
You said that's interesting. Let's go a little farther.
Well, I mean, you know, as these things are gonna roll out here now, you're gonna, you know, obviously there's gonna be difference of opinion, you know, as far as, you know, what is public, and if I rent, or if I lease, or if I'm just a weekend traffic, or if I'm gonna go play at the basketball court at the campground, or sit at the beach, is that all, you know, where does that line fall? If I'm good at my campfire, am I okay at the beach? Can I go, you know, smoke while I'm throwing horseshoes? You know, all those pieces are gonna come up here, and it's gonna have to be, it's gonna be kind of a murky mess if it's gonna be.
If the beach is 20 feet away from your site.
Right,
Now.
I'm
it's extra
tenting right
murky.
next to the beach and I'm sitting at that picnic table. But your site is over here, I can sit at my picnic table, but you can't, you know what I mean? It's all gonna be it's gonna be a mess. So.
But if this kind of clears it up. Until the individual jurisdictions decide.
Right,
Wouldn't you say, Carl?
In my opinion, this ordinance would prohibit it on the campground right now.
That are
Yeah,
city.
Just that are park, because it would be the city, it would
Public
be the
space.
public space.
Yeah.
The private campgrounds, they would have to create their own rules. If the city felt like they wanted to allow it, they could even say cannabis use is only allowable in this portion of the campground. Everything else is off limits. They would have that right or the ability to amend or to make this more or less prohibitive.
That makes
More
sense,
prohibitive.
Maya?
right, yeah. And I guess I would see it being not in the common space, you know, if it's gonna be no common spaces, but at your own specific site. Like I said, it just gets a little murky when you start talking about tenting sites that are right next to the basketball court, or, you know, this campsite's right by the bathroom versus this one's way far, you know, all that stuff is gonna be. That's where they're gonna have to make that determination. I mean, they could just say no. And that simplifies things, but if, you know, somebody wants to argue, well, I lease this, you know, I signed a lease here, this is my 20 feet or whatever. Why can't I, you know, then that's gonna be the question, so.
I got a question, Carl. So the January 1st, when the new regulation or the regulations and then the next ordinances or rules, will some of this get further explained or come to light? Potentially?
I believe the next ordinance is gonna be more geared towards licensing, like how many, they're not, dispensaries are allowable in the county.
In hours of
How many,
operation.
and hours of operation, and
How far away from schools, how far away from public places, what kind of licensing do you wanna do, who's gonna do it, who's enforcing it, who's permitting? But the state will have rules, probably they tell what they say the first quarter, they're hoping to have them completely imposed there, and a road. More.
and right now, there's a number of other counties out there right now who do have ordinances in place. Some of them are wide open, whatever you wanna do is fine, other ordinances are, we're gonna limit it to one dispensary, we're gonna limit it to, and that's the only thing you can limit. right now you can't limit how many grow operations you have, how many mobile businesses you have, how many like edible, like, those are all the different things that this other ordinance can also cover, or what it can and can't cover. You could limit the amount of THC. I'm not an expert in this. I think
Well,
when we get to that point, I would like to have public health come in and maybe do a presentation, maybe the second board meeting in December, if I have public health come in and do a presentation
I
on
think you'll
cannabis.
find that meeting's quite busy.
Okay. Maybe or I can push it out into January. Again, that's up to how the board would like to.
Well, we're in a rush to make it legal, we're building the car while we're driving it. So whatever we pass, if we pass this today, or if we wait a month and pass one then, we're gonna be amending it anyway, because we don't, the individuals who told us we must do this didn't really tell us what we must do. You just must do something. So it's gonna be a work in progress, however we do it.
So I got a question. Do we think, and I understand what you're saying, we're building it as well, but do we think at any point, if we looked at our vision in the future, that we would, from an oversight, Grant County public spaces, think that we would start carving out campsites in specific situations within our overall policy? Yes or no?
No.
No. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So then why would we do it now?
No, I'm not saying we should list a campsite or anything like that. I would want to have the interpretation so that, as we just said, this will be amended at some point. And Carl's probably the one that with Justin that'll do that. And now Carl knows what our intent is. So that if it has to be changed in 3-4 months,
Yeah.
we've had this discussion and he's familiar with where we want to go.
So is there a motion to accept the stated ordinance?
Yep, I'll make that motion to adopt this ordinance.
There's a second?
I'll second it.
Additional discussion, that was good discussion. Thank you, everybody. Is there more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have one question here. Okay, so when the state legalized marijuana, is there a statute, a violation of state law where if you are smoking in public, that's aside from every county ordinance? Do we know that? You know, usually when they pass a law, they have penalties with it on the state. You know, the 609.
They did not,
They did not.
well, so you gotta be 21 and you can't be this close to that. And I mean, it's very general.
Right, but there is something there that if you hook a 21-year-old smoking dope.
It's illegal under, it's same as alcohol. It's illegal to be under 21. And
Yeah, so there's gotta be a statute then, state statute. This is a county ordinance, so.
Another ordinance, do I usually have a link to those state statutes? That's where a lot of, that's like all the shoreline stuff is all linked to the state statute under shoreline rules. That's.
Yeah.
It's a similar deal here.
Yeah. I'll look at that one day.
It's. The full cannabis statute is in chapter 342.
Okay,
For the revisor, is that what you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, environmental services, who gets the next push?
You guys vote on it?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so if you don't mind, Louis and I are gonna kind of divide this and tag team, is that okay?
Yep.
Grab a chair and come up.
what were you gonna do if we did mine?
Then Reed would sit in the back or I would, one of the two, right? There we go. What do I get us to up there?
Well, you got a few items, I'll let
Oh, yeah.
you two just proceed, and if we need to make decisions along the way, we'll do that.
Right, okay, so maybe what we'll do, Reed, is I'll hit the contracts and then you can talk ordinance. That sound okay?
Yeah, I don't care.
All right, so, as you guys are aware, we have, GIS software that the county uses. And every year we come to you guys and request that we renew this contract with them. And in Carl and I's conversation the other day, we maybe came to the conclusion that this is such a everyday part of doing business that moving forward, I don't even know if this is a contract that we probably even need your guys' approval on, simply because it's a year in and year out contract that we utilize Esri, our vendor, to assist us with having GIS for the county. And we budget it every year, right? So I don't know, it's just a sidebar, but so what we're doing today is just requesting that you guys recognize and move forward with renewing the contract with Esri. And one of the things that we ran into is they sent this to us all electronically. So this is just a quote saying, yes, we will renew the contract, but then we have to go online and do all the rigmarole with authorizing it and all that, right? So we'll get a voucher and all that put together afterwards. So today what we're looking for is for you guys as a board to authorize renewing our 25 contract with Esri to assist us with providing GIS for the county.
What percentage increases their fee?
I didn't look at last year's, but I don't think it was much. Carl, can you access that last year's contract?
On my other computer, I could.
Yeah. I don't believe it was very much at all, Troy. I mean, it was pretty insignificant this year. Last year was kind of a bump because the software, we went to what they call enterprise, which is not untypical of software companies, just like Microsoft. One year you're getting Microsoft Word, and then all of a sudden now you got to buy the suite, that kind of game. But this year it was pretty insignificant. So
The standard desktop concurrent users, those are the same as what they were last year.
okay,
And same thing with the desktop or the analysts.
yep,
Those are the same as prior years. And then the basic single users, that's the same. I believe the enterprise is the one that had a slight increase in it.
right.
Okay, so who will be getting this contract next year?
Esri.
No, Carl, Reed, Reed?
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
Yep.
Sounds like me.
So I will
Yep.
make a motion to approve the Esri contract. And in there, we're gonna put in that as long as renewals are less than a 10% increase, the Director of Environmental Services can just approve them.
Okay,
But if it's over the 10%, then it needs to come back.
okay, that makes sense. Yep. And that's kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff that we've been trying to work out too, right?
You
So-
budgeted for this.
Yes, for sure. You bet. Yeah,
Across all the funds.
yep,
So,
There's a line item for it.
yep.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Then we can.
I'll second.
So one comment, just paging forward is that this normally would be under environmental services, right? And it's listed as land management office.
Yep.
Yes, so yeah, those are the little nuances we gotta change.
Yeah, so
Right,
that
Yep.
would be one point that.
Yep. Yep.
So.
and we've already
moving
talked about that,
forward- Okay.
but that's a good catch. Yep.
Other comments or questions?
it's a good system, there's a lot of people who use it
Mhm.
a lot.
A
The
lot of-
realtors were just crying.
a lot of staff.
It was down.
Yeah, when it crashes, people get, yeah, and there are little improvements that we've been working on too, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried.
So the next deal is that Charlotte ordinance public meeting discussion. So I think all of you guys are aware, a couple of times now we've said that we're updating that Charlotte ordinance, have been for a little while. We are finally at the point where DNR basically gave their conditional approval, which means we have, I don't know, less than a half dozen little comments that they want us to change. And we'll hold our public meeting and see if the public has any comments, and then we're basically moving forward to finally adopt the new one. And it's basically just rewriting the old one to make it more user friendly, easier to read. not quite so cumbersome. And then updating with any like state statute laws that change that we have to follow. So we're looking at doing our public meeting mid-December. And then going forward, coming after that meeting, coming to you guys to do some approvals. And then between that meeting in December for you guys and early part of January's meeting, DNR has 10 days to kind of give their final, yep, you're good to go, thumbs up. You can now adopt this. So there's kind of a couple of steps and we're finally at that last, like, 50 feet before the finish line here, so. We're
Same
just,
process that Carl just went through with adopting an ordinance. We'll
so
hold a public hearing with the planning commission.
first,
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yes,
is that
so it'll go
what-
before formally go before the planning
And
commission.
that's where the
Yeah.
public meeting.
So we'll
won't
get
be
it
at a-
published in the paper.
won't
all
be at a
those-
board meeting.
correct,
Right,
and then
not
they
in
will,
Michigan.
and then they will recommend approval to you guys, and then we'll bring it back to you. To
Yeah.
do that.
So do you anticipate any changes?
Between now and then,
Well, between the public meeting and the commissioners meeting,
because
you have to have it be able to be viewed for the 10 days, and if you have to make a change, we're already
yeah,
running
we-
out of time.
Yeah, we've talked about that,
yeah,
so
if we have
if we
to,
have to, we'll back it off.
to the second meeting
Yeah,
in January to
that's
get
right.
more time, but
Yeah.
it'll go out to the cities and the townships, and everybody here very shortly.
Yeah.
We don't see like substantial changes. Yeah, maybe there'll be some little tweak here or there, but not, oh, we gotta rewrite the book kind of change, so.
It's just that if you,
We just don't wanna back ourselves into a tight corner that we can.
well, right, you got, what I'm getting at, you gotta advertise that this board is gonna have the hearing, right? And we
Yep.
gotta have that. Well, if you advertise that and you've got that started before you had your public meeting for the planning advisory, you may wind up having to cancel this one because what someone viewed isn't what's being.
Right.
Yep.
Yep,
So realistically, I think you should look for this board into next year.
Yeah.
yeah, so,
With Thanksgiving and Christmas, your time window is just getting so short.
so how we'll roll with that, Troy, is at our planning commission meeting, they will recommend if the public comes in and says, well, we should change this, and they agree, right?
Yep.
Then those changes will be made that night at the planning commission meeting, that they will recommend to you guys. We'll bring them recommendations forward, and if you guys are okay with it, then we will publish in the paper that in January,
Okay.
you guys will approve.
Okay.
All of that,
That's how,
so that keeps that flowing, but,
And DNR will have already reviewed it.
and they will be,
Correct.
yes, they will be reviewing it in that same window, so.
So you're not looking to have a public hearing here
No.
irregardless in December?
Not with, no, you're correct,
just.
right,
just
we're bringing
us
that
recommend-
recommendation forward, and if you guys are good with it, then we will go publish in the paper that you guys
I
are good with it. and
misunderstood.
you're
I
gonna
thought
vote.
you wanted to have the December.
No.
Yes.
One as the
Yeah.
public.
No,
Yeah.
the public will be in front of the pack at their regular scheduled board.
So for example, that was the little nuance that Reed and I had to have the conversation on, because statutorily, it isn't super clear. So that's what I explained to Reed, how that's gonna flow, right? So you guys all get that? That it's,
Their ordinances are just a little bit, the statute on their ordinances are slightly different than the ordinance that we passed.
Yeah, it's just a
correct,
little.
yeah,
there's-
because we're under 390, it's called 394. Right, so, but we're trying to.
Give the public plenty of time.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be sending out paper copies to all the townships and all the cities and, Boys to Sioux, folks in the county, in staff that are on our committees. So it'll be very well known. But I think we've greased the skids pretty good. Everybody's pretty aware of it, and
Yeah.
we've been pretty diligent about taking our time and trying to do it right, so.
Been a multi-year process. so
Yep.
It shouldn't be shocking or surprising to
Yep.
anybody. I don't
Just
think.
maybe a comment, because I attend them as the board chair. The planning advisory committee is really engaged.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with how they do their work. And so I'm really comfortable in what you people are doing, and
Right.
that group is, I think, really handled well.
Right. And that's a perfect
That's
segue
segue.
into the next one. Right.
So every year, and I think all of you are aware, but you all kind of appoint somebody to be on that Board of Adjustment Planning Commission there.
Board
So,
chair?
yeah, so from you guys, the board chair is on that, but there's the other 5 guys who represent each one of you. Well, the last redistricting that got switched up, so now Troy, you are without a rep. And Dwight, you have 2 reps? Or Doyle has 2 reps?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in redistricting. It was-
Yeah,
It
so
was.
Doyle has 2 now, so now it's, so next, and
So
then,
you used to have Wendell, remember?
Yeah.
And that's, and your representative was Bob Oni.
You're right. Right.
And then when it got redistricted, then, you didn't have one, so you picked Bob Grover. But then what that ended up doing then is it kind of made Bob Oni on an island of his own. Because Doyle had another representative picked, who was Libesmeyer. Right, so in that redistricting, then Troy ended up with no one. So now we're in a situation where Bob, who is the chairman, is saying that, you know, I'm kind of winding down here, I'm in my 80s, and I don't know if I necessarily want to be, I don't want to be the chairman. So the other 4 who are on there, a couple of them are willing to step up. None of them are up for reappointment this year, a couple will be next year. Bob is the only one up for reappointment. So where we're at now is I guess we could have maybe had a sidebar conversation with Troy, but so Troy is without a representative. So conversation then we can have later is, are you willing to have Bob be your representative? Or would you rather have someone from your district? We don't have to, we don't have to make that decision. We're just telling you that,
this is the,
Right.
where we're at.
I
He's
think,
open to-
you know, you and I have had a discussion too about the appointments that the county do. I
yes,
think we need to advertise and find people that have interest.
right, and that's,
Just continually reappointing the same people is not
Exactly.
necessarily the appropriate way to go.
Yep.
We should be, when we have appointments come up, we should be asking for those who have interest.
yep. So we can run an ad in December and say, hey, we have an opening.
That's my feeling. I mean, we're gonna get a lot of people that are interested.
You know.
You don't know.
I'll share with you that in some counties, it actually gets to the point where, the board does interviews with potential planning commission members.
You know, if you have 10 people, we're gonna have to whittle it down somehow.
Right.
And in other counties, they.
Yeah, and-
They gotta go scouring the hills. to
And
find
you know,
somebody.
I mean, we've had, sometimes you guys gotta go begging. I mean, it's,
And it's not.
right, so
I've known.
this idea of interviewing 10 people, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen.
So potentially your planning advisory could be a whole different group in January.
No,
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 just-
the other 4
The other
are not
4.
up for reappointment. We stagger
So
them.
yeah. I get
They're
that.
staggered.
We stagger to try and avoid such.
There's continuity there.
It's just like you guys don't all 5 go up for reelection, that's maybe, it does happen, but it's rare, but. The others are, a couple are next year and then 2 are the year
Okay, so
after,
you get.
we're staggered.
But from what I've witnessed, the few meetings I've been at, this committee's got a lot of horsepower. I mean, we had that happen with,
Yeah.
what's the place in Ashby there,
The dog.
Dollar General,
I mean, and just some of the shorelands.
yeah,
It's an important, now, one of the questions I'd have, and I agree with the advertising, so there's discovery and openness. If someone didn't come forward, would we be able to then appoint Bob?
yeah, or, yeah, I mean, he could, but the thing will be now is he's not in your district, so you guys then kind of gotta, right? And you guys, Troy could honestly say, well, he's got a lot of experience, I think he's my best candidate, right?
I mean, that could be
But
but if someone else comes up, then.
Yes.
This group can.
Yeah. But traditionally, you guys have had to go out and beg, or you go find somebody you think would be interested. And that's kind of how you went about it last time, right? You knew that Bob was.
Because when I first started as commissioner, I had 2 in my district, didn't I? Cause I had Lonnie and I had Dave Williams.
yes,
Yeah.
There was 2 in that
yep,
Washington district then.
right.
So who does Doyle have now? Down on-
Scott
Scott
Libesmeyer.
Libesmeyer.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is kind of clean that up and get it back on track,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
good.
So then that will commence to the process to advertise.
yeah, so where we're at now then would be is
Is
if,
on the website or?
yeah, and I guess. If you guys, I don't know if it takes board action to go down that road, we could maybe just make that we could talk to Carl and have that as a policy for all of your guys' boards, whether it's this one or,
Board of Sue.
yeah, I mean, you got all kinds of, right?
Maybe make it
I
across
mean,
the
that's just,
board, how
I
you
mean, that's
operate.
just, that's why we hired Carl, right? Was to start bringing all that kind of stuff, so we're consistent with all of our appointments.
So it'd have to be, yeah, we'd have to do it that way. if we
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
If you're gonna do it, cause
Build
otherwise,
in fair play to it.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
HRA would be
But I would
another
want
board
to-
that-
Yeah, that'd be an example there too, right? All of them.
We just wanna make sure with our present members that we're doing this not because you're incompetent,
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure, yeah. And Bob knows that.
because they're really, awning's good.
Oh, hell yeah, very good, excuse me.
Yeah, we don't wanna turn into training grounds here either.
Yeah, well, no, that's why we don't do all five at once.
And they don't like it and walk, you know what I mean?
And we've had that a few times.
Do they have that and then,
county board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're still in training.
You're trying to teach him to eat warm pearl.
Yeah, he's having a hard time, isn't he?
He doesn't have that on his menu. Do you?
Well, at any rate.
done, Mr. Chair?
So that's just
Ready to
a,
move on to the next subject?
Carl, you don't need a motion or anything to draw up a policy on that, do you?
no. Right? Okay.
So, but, so that means we should or should not advertise, just so we're clear here. Moving forward. We should,
When do you want?
Well, it's a January appointment, so
That's
we
the
got
date.
December, if we can come back at the next board meeting and.
Well, I mean, I would say if advertise for it.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, yeah,
and
that's
then
fine.
you want them to reach out to us, and then we'll bring how many ever there are to you guys, or to you, could it be for yours?
I would say have, even before someone writes, I mean, they're gonna,
Like you.
potentially gonna wanna come and talk to you guys to see what it's all in. They come talk to me, and oh, it's grand, you'll love it, it's the greatest thing ever.
You'll sell them,
But-
hard. Good,
Right,
You're gonna know the more detailed ins, and I mean, it's
Yeah,
been on there, but.
right. Right, and I have examples of how it's been advertised, so maybe what I'll do is I'll spit out an email and show you guys, this is what we're thinking.
Can I ask a question on this? So we would be doing the Boyd Sioux Watershed Board? That would be one of those?
yeah, pile of board. Isn't there something?
Oh, you've got a ton of boards you guys.
Yeah, well, all the boards that you guys appoint kind of be the same idea.
Yeah.
Just make sure we're not
The
signing up.
comprehensive local water plan, or is that's just with Jared, so that'll be.
That's just,
next.
that's just SWC, yep.
Don't you have an extension
Maybe the
board?
planning
Extension,
advisory
that's
commission.
Doyle and I. It's
Oh,
supposed to be the board chair.
oh,
But it
okay,
seems
never
like
mind.
I've been married to
These
that
publicly,
for quite a
the
while.
public ones.
The extension committee is that,
Doyle and I.
so that's,
Well, there's other people.
but
on
there's
it.
other people on that. like
Yes.
Lucy Anderson, Tim Coleman. So
Yes.
that would
And
be-
those are appointed.
Also needs,
All the ones that
they're
are appointed.
appointed, so that would be also
Mhm.
with the
Yeah.
advertising.
Yep,
And all those are up in January,
Winningham,
which ones are up.
Katie Bloom,
Yep, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board.
we all pick one.
So that would be
And they-
another
their
that
terms
you
come up on that.
advertise.
Yep,
That's why I wanted to ask.
We're just trying to go through these to make sure that we. I'll probably list the committees that should be. Part of this policy.
yeah. Well, you're coming up, you never know.
But put in a disclaimer that it's not an all-inclusive list. So there may be some we missed somewhere that,
Or ones that come up that now all of a sudden you need to appoint people to. So that was more just FYI, we don't necessarily need any board action, just to,
It's good dialogue though, that was.
yeah, it was good fun. Let's back to you, Phil, last one then.
Yeah, okay, so moving forward, each year we do get, money from the state to assist in running the, septic program. And this year they want to award us $21,200. So I am, requesting that you guys, authorize Grant County to approve and accept that grant.
They traditionally do this.
Yeah, every year. Yep.
And it's about the same number every year.
Yeah, well, it sneaks up a little bit, but yeah, this is, and it doesn't, this is, I wouldn't call it, septic isn't an unfunded mandate, but the 21,000 doesn't necessarily cover the whole program, but we utilize it to pay salary and that kind of stuff.
No, but what it does is it helps people.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Big time, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a $3,000-4,000 price tag on a $15,000 system.
No, this isn't,
The other one?
that's a different one. This basically goes to the county
Right.
to support our program, so it helps with,
Admin and.
with
all that,
admin.
Basically.
This isn't a grant to offset the cost of a septic. That's a
That's
different.
over and above.
Right,
It's a
and that's
different-
something that, now that we have Ruben on board, and actually Ruben's at, utilizing some of this money, he's at inspector training today, so, right? He's just a little plug for Ruben, he's, doing a hell of a job.
So motion to accept the grant agreement is
Motion approved.
second,
Second.
additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried.
With Ruben, I think you couldn't have got a better guy than that.
Yep.
I watched him build those mounds for 5 years.
Yeah.
Goodness sakes.
He's a good guy. I'll probably need you guys to sign these then, or can, quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just take them and then.
Yeah.
Sign at the end.
Later.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for your time, guys.
For 4 minutes, and I'll be right back. Get rid of the couple.
Okay.
Roy, what's the pay for those appointed people? Is it like $70 a meeting? $70 a meeting?
Well, it's the same as what our meeting pay is. It tracks. So let's say you had the planning advisory and they had an all day, it would be the 120.
It's not gonna give you that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, put it back up. Yeah. So. Good luck.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, well. We could be, yeah.
Hey Greg, there wasn't an actual signature line on the Esri quote.
No, it's just a quote, so they'll give us a contract later.
I thought there was something for somebody to sign it.
that's just what comes with the word packet, it looks like.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, okay, shoot, I thought there was something. Okay.
you basically, Greg, we just need them to motion to give us the ability to do the.
Oh, yeah.
They ain't gonna give me enough for it.
Oh, have a guy over here.
And what it does is, it cheapens us the nice price, you know, do kind of right, so not a whatever. He goes, if you go to a meeting, I'll take your influence or something. I said, well, that'd be good. So, if you see, that was a good fit, then you can divide the duties, and a lot of it is wrapped around the fair anyway, you know, so it's in his court. He's on the fair court, or at least he was.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so I do the meetings and it keeps the cost down.
Mr. Combs.
Isn't Matt first? No.
Looks like you're next.
Morning,
Morning.
something very, very short, so. Cleaning agreement for the new law enforcement center, we had explored. And taken bids from a few different cleaning services. And I questioned the cost of those, I was never really happy with them, cause they were expensive. And, just so happened to be in conversation one day, Josh Ulrich, who's one of our dispatchers, LSA 911 coordinator, says, well, my wife cleans. So Heather came and met with us and took a look at the building and said, oh, heck yeah, I'll clean it. So she was about anywhere from $400 to $600 less per month than the other quotes that we had taken. And so, we began conversation with Ashley and also with the county attorney, regarding contracts and things as such. And so Justin had suggested that we have a contract, with Heather, just as the other, like Western Prairie would have, and also the highway, in having an agreement, with our cleaner. So we had basically just changed, dollar amount within the current cleaning contract that the county has, or Western Prairie has with their cleaning services and also highway, and changed the name. And, Justin had looked at this agreement and agreed that, it is what it is. So my request is, to get board approval to, have Heather Ulrich, do the cleaning for the new LEC. And she's been cleaning now, for about a month, and she does just a phenomenal job, so.
And you will be budgeting for this?
Gonna have to, yeah. When you say did you advertise in the paper that you were taking bids No, we didn't advertise. We had, reached out to, the people that are doing this one. The crew that was, hired to do the, cleaning, the first big cleaning of the LEC after construction to submit a bid. They also, do weekly, bi-weekly cleaning. So those were the two bids that we had taken.
I guess the only comment I would have is that since it is a contract, that we make reference that it's the sheriff's office, it's as possessive, and I don't think it is the sheriff's office, it's a law enforcement center. And that's not a negative comment to you, John, by any means, but it references in under number 2 and in the heading. So I'm just wondering if it shouldn't say law enforcement centers, just because I think that's what it is.
Yeah, whatever you think. If you want to, do you want to leave it all as Grant County or as the law enforcement center?
So did you buy a vacuum cleaner and stuff, or
We have a lot of that stuff that,
was from over next?
yeah, that we had. Yeah.
But you're gonna provide the cleaning equipment and.
We did all that, yes. Yeah, we went with the same agreement that the county has with Hilliard. And ordered all our products through them. So we have everything on hand.
Is there a motion to accept the cleaning agreement with Heather Ulrich? I'm assuming she has demonstrated the insurance coverage that states.
We've got,
Yeah.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
it. Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make the revisions to this then for like law enforcement center.
Well, I think the building states that's kind of all the path we're on,
Right.
and so I'm just thinking it's a little bit like Greg referencing environmental services as we move forward.
Mhm.
That's the new office, so I think having it
Okay,
accurate with what we.
Yeah, it has its own setting versus just. an
Yeah.
office.
so I'll leave the signature page with you then, Carl. Cause that doesn't reflect anything as far as the changing goes.
Yeah.
And then I'll get the rest of it changed. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I thought, and I've told you this, but I thought the open house went really well. I think there was really a nice turnout and the flow of the people, and
There are a couple hundred people there for sure.
is that what it was? I was gonna ask you. So
Well, they, at least. Yeah, what, we had it from 3 to 6, and they started showing up at 2:30, 2:45, and I think I got home at 10 to 8.
Yeah. So I thought, and having the staff around and yourself, it went good, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really good, and then where the Elbow Lake Lions came the following night,
Oh, okay.
that was an hour and a half.
So John, you'd still take a group like that if they,
Anybody that wants to come.
yeah,
In that clear, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Is,
No, once things slow down through this fall, I hope to, start doing some things with each fire department as well throughout the county, so.
Yeah.
Get some invites on some training nights and.
I would think, good old fashioned school tours would be pretty good for the upper grades,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Matt.
Good morning, commissioners. My agenda item is the final of the contract for our HSIP street lighting project. This was a joint project with Douglas County that we administered. Contractor finished everything up, and they also completed all their back end paperwork that's required for us to final out the project. So today, I'm here with the final payment and the board would need to resolve to accept the contract as final and make final payment in the amount of $25,395.19.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the final acceptance of the contract? Let's state-
No moved.
Second.
So I got a question, for discussion, and I think I brought this up back when Tracy was involved in this and we'd gotten some grant money and, is after REA changed their fees for basic service, and I just looked in this month's warrants, it's about $10,000 a year that we're spending on electricity, and I know there, and I can't remember where it is, but I know there's and I brought it up about going solar, and he said, no, can't do that. Well, I don't know if that's how we said it, but
Well,
there is one in Douglas County somewhere, and I just find it hard to believe in this day and age that we're spending $10,000 a year on 13 or 15 lights.
well, I can speak to that. I wasn't here when that conversation took place, but at my previous employer, we did a similar project to this. I've done a couple of them in the past. And the odd thing was there's transitions at MnDOT with different people in charge of various departments, which can sometimes throw a wrench into things. So I ran into the same problem where we had a light that was about 2,000 feet from the nearest feed point. So we had proposed to use a solar light there, which we had done in the past. Because otherwise you have 1,500 feet of cable, which gets expensive, and you gotta, every time there's a one call, you gotta locate that each and every time. But MnDOT came back and said, nope, we can't use solar lights because they're not determined to be crash worthy. So they can't be within that clear zone of the road. Unless we wanted to go through the effort to verify that they are crash worthy, which would have costed us tens of thousands of dollars to do that. So we did the same thing, which is, well, we're not gonna do solar, I guess, and we'll just hardwire them. So unless something changes at MnDOT, I don't know what's gonna happen. I think there are ways around it, but they're not cheap either.
So if they weren't on, do we have any that aren't adjacent to a state highway?
Yeah, there would be some that are Casasa routes.
So would that MnDOT's rules apply to them?
No, we are the road authority.
They would, since these are federal funds, we would have to still meet those requirements.
So it would apply.
Placement is our call, right?
Placement is our call, but they would still have to meet the crash worthiness since it is federal funds.
So
If we were gonna do just a county road, which wasn't on the CASA system, that would be all local dollars. We could do that.
Yeah.
The county CASA route, we would have to meet the standards.
We don't have any that aren't though, right?
I don't believe there would be one on a county road.
So where they are using, have they determined there are some crash worthy solar lights or not?
I guess I haven't gone back to discuss it with them because that was about 3 years ago that this conversation took place. I don't know if it's changed since then or if they've evaluated something, but that's something I would look into if I ever did another project like this. Because Grant County's very rural, so it only makes sense to have more solar out there. And they do come with their own disadvantages because if a solar panel light gets hit and all the hardware is there with it, well, all of that needs to be replaced now as opposed to just the pole and the light.
Yeah.
So there's plus and minuses to them.
And I know it become a lot different issue once REA switched their minimum charge policy and.
Yep. Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I was putting together the budget, how much it was costing just to keep these lit year round, but.
very popular.
Yep, they are popular.
Price or what?
Oh, duh, I don't know, yeah, it was 20 some dollars, 26 or 29 and. They. I disagreed with them, they lowered their the rate per kilowatt hour, and then they raised the minimum fees, so the large users got all the benefit, minimum use users got all the charge. I mean, they're just paying through the nose.
We're
Well, it was
obviously,
no, for me, it was no different thing.
Well, no, in our house, it was about a wash. But in a lot of places like this,
yeah,
and they're treating every intersection as a minimum.
yeah, they're all separate feed points, so.
That's,
But yeah, it was looked at for solar, and that's why we didn't get the one down by the golf course done, because they forgot to get a price for the electrical run to that, when they switched from solar back. Cause yeah, it was designed as solar, and then the state said no.
That's what I remember.
you know,
It was like 20,000 just to put power there, wasn't it?
I think it was like
I
30.
think so.
30, well, there was two of them, there was one on west of Herman too, off of 27 and our 21. So those two got axed. That was like a $40,000 bill for both of them.
so do they have data that, I mean, shows that these save accidents and lives?
Oh,
Do they say they do? Yeah.
I guess I've never read a study on whether they do or don't. I guess I'd have to look into that. It's not, to me, it's more of a convenience to light up the intersection, so more for wayfinding, and if there are pedestrians or something near the intersection, they can see them, but
Sure.
I don't know, I can find an intersection in the dark if I need to, so.
It does identify the intersection in like snowstorms and stuff like that. So it's very popular. I mean, there's a lot of people that thought we should have been doing this a long time ago.
Yeah, I've had people that were furious that we were putting them in the past and thought they were a waste of money, and then all of a sudden, once you actually do it, then calls start coming in with people requesting more and more in every intersection. It's like,
Yeah, I kind of heard this, I mean, it's more positive than negative.
yeah, it gets negative when there's houses right there that aren't used to having a light there. Because they're bright lights, they light up a large area and you can see them for a long ways.
So who's doing the maintenance on them?
Well, we would do the maintenance on them.
Okay. And I won't remember if one of the people that drove boot truck out west somewhere had commented that one of the intersections, I don't know, one was flashing and one was out, or out of, he asked me if the county does
Yeah,
I didn't get the intersection because it was in church, we were talking about it.
and that's the other thing, you know, people say they're out, but they might not be our light, they might be MnDOT's light or a
Sure.
city light or a power company's light, so.
All in favor of the contract, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Coordinator.
All right, we already passed the resolution supporting psychiatric residential treatment facility. The other resolution, Dwight had asked me to bring forward was the designating emergency medical services as essential in Grant County. It's just sent out in your board packet.
And Mr. Chair, I just felt that we needed to do this to, make a point, I guess, that, in Grant County, we do believe that our EMS, services are essential because they are. And, I just wanted to have a resolution, showing that, and maybe, other places will pick up on it. And, we'll have a EMS in the future for years to come.
Has Justin looked at this?
I don't know if Justin has looked at this. This was brought forward by.
Yeah. I don't think he has, no.
I guess the only, and I don't know that he needs to, other than if and I don't know when you use the terminology essential service. And since there are law enforcement and fire protection that are considered essential services, does this take on a wider range of responsibility or liability, or is there a backstory?
No, I don't think it does. Because in the state's eyes, they're not designated as essential services. We're just saying that we feel in Grant County that it is essential. You know,
I would like Justin's opinion on that essential services as well, because that. I'm leery that brings with it additional responsibilities, means we said it's essential. You must now fund it beyond what, I mean, I see here it says that we will consider funding, but being it's deemed essential, is that saying that you are required to fund it because it's been deemed essential?
well, we can ask them, but I don't feel that's it at all. But yeah, we can run it by you.
I would feel more comfortable with that, and then, you know, the other part of this is, and it does say emergency medical services, is I've had questions from first responders, not necessarily ambulance service, but first responder services saying, well, if we're ponying up money. So, you know, that's something that's gotta be thought about too, is that the requests aren't gonna end.
And I support the concept and not at all, it's not a negative at all. But I echo the same thing Troy just mentioned, to make sure that, I mean, obviously that we were willing to budget $165,000 to support. This is some verbiage, but I do think we should make sure we step back and have that analysis done.
Well, any contract should go in front of the county attorney's eyes before, you know.
Budget resolution to contract.
It'll end up that way eventually, I guess.
So can we then table this until at a time that, whether it's the next meeting or meeting after, that Justin has, and we've done a little more research, does that make sense? Are you okay with that, Dwight? Bill?
Yep.
And we did the last thing, now we got other.
I don't know, I went over there by Stony Brook Township and took a look at the box cover, the install and where things are at, and it was there last night, and it's backfilled, and they were gonna do, they had riprap there, they were gonna riprap probably the north side, I would guess. So I'm guessing this rain kind of slowed them up a little bit. So, but they're gonna finish. So, and it's, you know, it is a township issue, but, you know, the county's taking the lead. So as a member of the highway committee, I wanted to just see how they were pursuing and how fast they got on it, and the install of the box culvert and all that stuff. They did a beautiful job. Beautiful.
Who was that again?
Starts with a G. Glasney or Gletney? Something like that.
They said that,
I'll take that back.
okay, did they set that, box culvert?
Gladen Construction.
Gladen.
Oh, yeah.
Gladen.
Did they set that with a crane, or did they have the big full swing hole set it? or-
I didn't see a crane sitting there, so.
Okay, they had a big hole.
Oh, yeah, they got actually 3 backhoes sitting there.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's good, it's, I've seen that washed out a couple
Yeah,
times.
and it was good, here's the twist, it's good that they get the install done, so then that thoroughfare around the construction that's gonna happen next year between, you know,
Right.
Cat's Eye Corner and Wendell.
Yeah.
At least they only gotta go a mile to go around, whether it be a farmer or anybody. And then they were gonna try to get it done by June, and you know what that was gonna be. It's, you know, of course, you can go around the section, but to the south, you know what I mean, you can't go around, you know, down through the, you know, to the east of
Right.
Bisses, Chad Bisses, that's a tough road to try to get machine in and up.
Oh, yeah.
And they do, but it's, it's best when the water's low and you're not fighting water to be able to do these installs. That's the way I see it. So it was a good fall install timeframe for him.
So I had a question, Troy, I see you were listed, the hazardous mitigation plan, is that
Hazard
right?
mitigation,
That planning and team meeting, is there? Should we have an update, or is that a Maya? I should have probably asked him when he was here. Are you got any thoughts on it, or?
and it's just gotta be redone every 5 years and you gotta have stakeholders. So that plan is, there's someone from the U and a consultant writing it, and when Maya gets, that was one of the final steps, it'll come back to the board.
Okay, so it's just.
Did
it's in
everybody
process.
have an invite to that?
Yes, I believe they did, Why?
Yeah, it's just, you're listed, you gotta have. You gotta have your potential hazards listed. And then you've gotta provide steps of what you're doing to mitigate them so that you're eligible for FEMA money in the event.
Yeah.
What have we done to try to help reduce the severity of a tornado? And not much you can do, other than, if we have places where people gather, do we have storm shelters? So then you got a list of wind events. What are you doing? Well, what can you do?
Thank you. I just might mention that yesterday they had the exit audit meeting on Zoom. There was, I don't know, what is there, 5 or 6 department heads and myself in the state auditor's office. One of the things I just would like to mention is that other than a few findings, it was a unmodified, which is the best report. One of the discussion points at the end was whether they thought, we wanted them to make the presentation to the full board, and they haven't always done it. I did ask for Chad's input on it. I told them, based on what I heard, and I know, Carl, you can weigh in on it, that I did not think we needed the auditor's office to present it to us. We will receive it, a copy electronically, and that we chose not to have them on our agenda. So just to let you know, that was the decision. If you're not fine with it, then we have to call them up. Would that be a fair way of saying it, Carl?
Yes.
Yeah. Other things you have, Carl, or anyone else, I guess?
I don't have any other items. Coordinator, the assessor's office stuff is starting to pick up quite a bit now. So I'm gonna have to start transitioning some of those other things, and like some of the little smaller projects, I'm probably gonna have to put off in the coordinator and dedicate more time into the assessor's office. Just with valuations coming to a close, now is all the time to make all the appeals to the Department of Revenue. We do have one large time trend in Hoffman City, and I'm still trying to figure out if I can fight that one there.
About this budget committee, and the times available, and, a lot of times, I sat and read through the emails just to see, and I did not respond because I figured this would come up today. And that's what I wanted to bring up. What days in December work for you, Troy? Because we're getting to the tail end of this month. Carl, you mentioned, the 21st, 22nd, 25th, 26th, and the morning of the 27th.
I think what I'd like to do is, as I'm digging into these budgets a little bit more, I'm really noticing that, just talking with Greg, the numerous different pots of money that they manage. I think what I'm gonna do is I'd like to meet with the department heads and kind of figure out, and I would really like to create a kind of a flow chart of saying, the emergency or the environmental services, they take care of the garbage, the solid waste, how they're dealing with, the AIS money, there's all these different number of pots. And I'd just kind of like to understand all of those different pots and kind of how they correlate back to their budget or how they're budgeting different things. I think I need to kind of get my head around all those different pots of money too, so I'd also like the departments to be able to kind of tell me about each one of them a little bit, so I think that'd be helpful as well. And then going from there, I think we need to, I still need to meet with the sheriff's office. Is there a commissioner who would like to come and sit down and discuss the sheriff's budget? Because as I'm looking through the committee assignments, I don't see one that kind of really fits in with the sheriff.
Well, there was a public safety that, or there used to be.
I think they disbanded that one.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It's not on there, the public safety.
I
don't remember that being established.
There
There
was,
was in the beginning, but I think it's been gone for quite a while. There was a safety committee and then we had the court security committee.
there's public safety committee,
There,
Yeah,
who's on?
Troy Johnson, Doyle Spear, and Sheriff Choice.
okay.
But do they typically talk about the budget in that committee?
well, that was designed to be the sheriff's first contact before coming to the board. That was Sheriff Langley that established that originally, when he wanted something that would be the first so like a highway committee. That's how it was designed.
Would you like me to set it up under that committee, or is that something the chairman would like to designate somebody to have me go talk with the sheriff?
So. I'll just look at it over here. Well, didn't we have I missed a budget committee, or you're thinking of something?
We did have, so I'd kind of thought that the sheriff's budget is a whole other animal compared to the general fund, compared to the highway. So the highway, we're gonna be meeting at 2:30 this afternoon to be going over the kind of the highway budget and what that looks like. The general fund, I've been through that a couple of different times. Troy and Bill and I sat down and kind of discussed that for about an hour. And then the only other department I haven't sat down with would be the sheriff's.
Well, I can give you times, I can't give you a whole even morning or afternoon, but I can give you times.
Right, well, and I'd be fine with that.
So one of the things that I mentioned to Bill and to Carl, and I think this would be the time when you meet, is the law enforcement budget. And I brought it up that now we just approved a $9,600 cleaning contract. That was in Jeff's budget, the county buildings, which they're not in the courthouse anymore. And Jeff's budget went down from last year. So I think the committee's gotta sit down with John and his team, and they need to have their own budget and all the costs associated with the law enforcement center, which we generally identified, is in his budget. And it's not in there right now, and so I don't know where they're gonna pull it from. But then Jeff has his budget for the county buildings. And the highway has theirs for their buildings, and John will have his for his buildings. It's not together. I mean, he's got 41,000, the preliminary 2025 under county buildings, $41,000. Well, we just spent 9,600 of it.
We don't pay for cleaning for this building out of building and maintenance.
No,
We don't pay for it for highway out of building and maintenance.
Right, and so that's gotta be changed before the final, and before we vote on the final. And that was talked about well in advance when we were going through this. Cause we talked about $100,000 to $120,000 of the potential operating costs,
Cause yeah, the
and it's not in.
response I got before when it was brought up is we're not gonna need that.
Well, we're gonna need it, and it's gotta come from somewhere. And we don't wanna be in our December final budget meeting bumbling in front of the public, trying to figure out who's gonna pay the cleaning bill. So, yeah, I think your committee doesn't need to meet.
Yeah, no, and that's what we,
And I'm not saying anyone's disagreeing with me, but I would just wanna raise it up because I did bring it up during the preliminary. And I did get the answer that no, it's in there, and I'm telling you, it's not. And it shouldn't be in there anymore. Cause they're not in the courthouse. Now, like you guys talk about when you wanna figure it out.
Well, we can do that after.
Yeah, okay. Anything else, Carl?
not at this time, I don't have anything else.
Anything else from anyone else? Okay, during the meeting at 10:36. Thank you. Did, Greg, did you see that email here?
Yeah, I gotta run use the bathroom. I gotta get time to Carl yet anyway.
Are we gonna meet here or there?
We're going at 2:30.
Are they here?
Oh,